So over the last couple of weeks, we know that Reform has been trying to buy our political system. There's been talks about him trying to buy Reform. The Reform Party have pretended to act like anti-establishment insurgents. But they are the most establishment political party out of all of them. They are bootlickers for the billionaire class. They attack Labour for taking money from the rich, which, by the way, they're correct to do because Labour have been taking money from the corporations. They've been taking money from the billionaire class, and they do not have a leg to stand on criticising other political parties. But Reform are also hypocrites because they're doing the same. And look, Reform pretend to be for the ordinary working class person, but they are liars. So they voted against increasing workers' protections in Parliament. It was Angela Rayner's thing, and that was severely watered down, by the way, the workers' package. A lot of unions critiqued it. So this watered down bill was voted down by Reform because they don't care about the working class. They also have the least amount of votes in Parliament because they can't be bothered to turn up. So do you seriously think that Reform stand up for the working class? When Farage shacks up with Nepo baby billionaire Trump and with Musk, I mean, up until very recently, though, because we know that Musk has thrown his toys at the pram and no longer wants to play with Farage anymore because he's not right-wing enough because he won't support Tommy Robinson. But if you believe they support the working class, I think you are beyond gullible because their entire political project is Thatcherism on steroids. They're offering nothing new. It's just more neoliberalism, which is what we've had for the last 40 years. It's the reason why we're in this mess today. It's more privatization, it's more cuts, it's more destruction of our public services, and they dress it up as small government. Now, it's not actually small government because this is what the Republican Party do. They say small government, but what they mean is tax breaks for billionaires, underfunding of public services, deregulation for corporations and banks, and weakening of workers' rights, but they're very big government when it comes to how you identify with, women's rights, who you want to marry. Now, Reform aren't going to be campaigning on getting rid of equal marriage. Of course, that's not going to happen, but they do want the debate to move even further to the right on social issues. Namely, this story recently, which was Nigel Farage talking about maybe reigniting the debate on abortion limits. It was something we covered on one of our Normal Ireland shows last year. And the guy's a man, he's not an expert on healthcare. The guidelines are set out by experts. Now, this isn't specifically about abortion limits. This is about putting women's rights back on the agenda, or women's right to choose back on the agenda. Now, if you don't believe me, well, he's met up with religious Christian fundamentalists and extremists, and these groups don't believe in abortion altogether. But of course, if Farage were to come out and say, look, I think we shouldn't have abortion, I don't believe in the women's right to choose, he knows his political career would be destroyed. And he can't do that because in the UK, we're not quite as right-wing as the US in terms of social issues, and he isn't stupid. But slowly he wants to move the dial on the debate. Reform are not fighting the establishment. They're simply a pro-corporate, social conservative, limited company, not even a political party. And the membership has zero say in how the party is run. And they would never, mark my words, they would never turn it into a full-on democratic party because they hate democracy and they hate the working class. And I find it so ironic that Reform, who have just rebranded the Brexit Party, that were also rebranded from UKIP, because their entire philosophy, political philosophy, especially Brexit, was about sovereignty and democracy, yet Reform want to take what little power we have and give it to the corporations and billionaires. Now, we have just over 4 years to get our act together to win more seats than Reform at the next election, but I don't think currently the left is up to it. Now, you don't need to tell me the odds. You don't need to tell me the state of the media. I'm aware that Reform are playing politics on easy mode and the left are playing it on pretty much impossible. And we also have another problem. When talking about Reform, facts don't mean shit. They and the entire right-wing ecosystem, all they do is lie and they lie and they lie. Facts don't mean shit, but narratives do. Narratives matter. And I think we can do so much more. I think the Green Party can do so much more because at the moment, I still think they sound too technocratic. They need to sound more populist. They need to be angrier, more aggressive. And I think their messaging needs to be more about class. So what we need to do is create a narrative for the left and create one for Reform. Calling Reform evil and racist, that's not going to work. It's going to go over people's heads. What we need to do is shame them and embarrass them like they deserve to be. And that is to point out that they are pathetic losers who bootlick for the billionaires who see Elon Musk as their daddy, because that's all who Reform stands for. And distracting us with immigration and culture wars is their tactic to do so. And it doesn't help that Labour, the Tories and Reform are all doing the same thing. I mean, Labour and the Tories aren't quite as extreme, but they are all in pocket of billionaires and the corporations. And the only sort of left-wing parliamentary representation we have is 4 Green MPs and a handful of independents. So we've got a whole lot of work to do.
Support independent media, support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.